they're doing this without prepping the American public a lot on the front side.
Well, Tom, I think the election prepped those of us who are listening to what the president intended to do, right?
Okay, you wrote something that we ran on RCP over the weekend on Trump's tariff and his multi-pronged strategy. He looks like he's full steam ahead, doubling down. Now he's going to slap more tariffs on China if they don't pull back on their reciprocal tariffs or retaliatory tariffs that they put on us. The markets were down, then up. Now, even-ish, but down overall since Trump launched his Liberation Day. So give us a sense, what's the overall plan here? What is Trump trying to accomplish? And after, a couple of days at least, how is it going? Is it going the way that he thinks it's supposed to go?
Well, I'm going to start with that, Tom. I think it is going the way I think he wanted it to go. The White House has been contacted by 50 countries, apparently, who want to negotiate lower tariffs. So that was one of the big purposes of the reciprocal tariff that he announced on Liberation Day last Wednesday. So it's already had the desired effect pretty much across the board. China looks like the outlier, that they responded in a negative way. They slapped additional tariffs on. Remember, their tariffs and their non-tariff barriers were already high. That's what the U.S. was responding to. So for them to react to the president in terms of putting the tariffs they put on last Wednesday on China was missing the point. And I think when he put a 50% tariff on their goods, I think Xi will see the point, step back, and consider what the next move should be. It's not likely to be matching it with a 50% tariff. Their stock market was off. They were limiting down. They had a really terrible day in China. And the U.S. markets are stabilizing. I think people are figuring out what Trump is up to here. And as I said in the article, there's really a multi-pronged strategy. First of all, he's looking to lower the barriers to our exports so that we have more places to sell American-made goods around the world. There aren't U.S. cars in Germany. There should be. And so the EU, note, is one of the countries or trading groups that have approached the U.S. They're offering a zero tariff on industrial products. They're not yet addressing the non-tariff barriers or the tariffs on agricultural products, but that's a step forward. But in addition to that, one of the president's long-term goals has been to reshore into the United States domestic manufacturing opportunities. And that suggests a longer-term tariff strategy that is not zero, right? So that suggests that there will be some more tariffs on at least selected industries targeting certain countries to assure that the key industrial supply is still being manufactured in the United States. Think about steel, think about autos, think about pharmaceuticals, think about chips. These are all things that the United States needs to manufacture, and they're currently not being manufactured in the United States.
So, but as to how it's gone, Richard, do you think the administration expected the sell-off that took place at the end of last week on Thursday and Friday? What, $6 trillion of value wiped off the market? And obviously, whether they expected it or not, Trump is plowing ahead. It didn't seem to affect him at all. And the administration tried to make the case, listen, we can't get too wrapped up with what's going on Wall Street, and 10% of folks control 80% of the equities market, and half of America basically lives on credit and debt and don't have anything in the stock market. And what they're trying to do is sort of reorient the system to help those folks. So do you think they were surprised by what happened? And if they continue with the strategy, how long can Trump go, and how much pain can he take, or can the market take before he has to change course?
I doubt they were surprised. I don't think anybody really expected or really wants the scale of market fall off from this, but I do think that the market fall off is a result of the desire to shock and awe CEOs of the Fortune 1000 and get them focused on reshoring onto the United States, their production, but also our international competitors and friends, our trading partners, getting them focused on the reality that the trading environment has changed and we need to renegotiate onto a more level playing field. And so I think that they had to make this big enough that it really caught people's attention, and sure did, didn't it? I mean, it really did. And markets have reacted around the world. this is what's driving, in part, the desire from our trading partners to come back and negotiate with us. They see what's happened in their markets. They know that the United States is an essential market that they need to be in. And so having tariffs that are a level that start making the opportunity to sell, whether it's wine or it's foreign cars or whatever it is, back in the United States, they want to scramble and make sure those opportunities are available for their manufacturers. So look, I think there's going to be a full-scale, around-the-clock kind of negotiation with our trading partners. You notice that this is all coming out of the Oval Office. This is not sort of an administration-wide initiative where, it's been, vetted through an interagency process and there's clearly defined goals. I think there's a pragmatism to this that's going to result in a somewhat of an ad hoc response on a country-by-country basis based on what the conditions are in that country. So a deal for Vietnam is going to be different than a deal with the EU, and it's going to be different with the deal in Israel. But I do think, Tom, that today, with Benjamin Netanyahu being in the Oval Office and coming to talk about trade in addition to security, I think we're likely to get an indication of where we're going to end up on the tariffs at the end of the day, when after the markets close, when the president has his press conference with Netanyahu and they talk a little bit about where they're coming out on the trade terms. I do think it's to the advantage of the United States to strike while the iron is hot and get as many of these deals locked up as swiftly as possible. That'll reduce the uncertainty. I think it's in part the uncertainty that's driving some of the market turmoil. I do think that we're likely to end up in a much better place, Tom. I think as a result of this, we're going to see tariffs go down, the barriers to our exports, and we're already seeing the reshoring of investment to the United States to make more products here, which will create more jobs, more demand for our labor, which should increase, wages for the middle income industrial worker and so forth. So I think that we'll see this play out. Along with Doge, the president is fighting many fights on many fronts.
We got about a minute left, Richard. And, Carl had said the president should have an Oval Office address and lay this out to the American people. I mean, I think if there's one criticism, and maybe this is all part of the plan, it's just like a sneak attack or the shock and awe. But even with Doge, could the administration be in a better place if they had done a little more prep work with the American people and said, look, here's the problem. Here's what we're going to do to solve it, right? On government spending or, shrinking the bureaucracy, on tariffs. And here's the problem. Here's, because it seems like, they just go at it and it's chaos and hysteria and all that. And then they're kind of trying to, I don't want to say justify it after the fact, but certainly they're doing this without prepping the American public a lot on the front side.
Well, Tom, I think the election prepped those of us who were listening to what the president intended to do, right? I mean, they said what they're going to do. And I do anticipate that there'll be an Oval Office address around the time of the 100th day of his administration. And at that point, I think what it'll be is a checkpoint. He'll be detailing some of the successes he's already achieved, the changes he's made in the government, as well as I bet you there'll be successes to announce with regard to tariff and trade policy at that point too. So yeah, there'll be an Oval Office address. I don't know if there'll be one this week as an interim matter. I don't think he wants to convey any concern at all. Part of what he's done with the market turmoil is he's created value in the chips that he put on the table last Wednesday. Those chips that he's going to trade for better deals are now worth more because he has demonstrated he's willing to take market heat in order to make these changes. So people know he's serious. And so as people are feeling pressure in other countries, there'll be more to trade with these new tariffs that he's created. So I don't think he wants to look like he's concerned about what people think at this point.